today evening, I'm going to talk about my experience with masalas and my fascination for it. To introduce myself, like Rishikesh said, I am from the technology field. I have built, effluent treatment plants, sold water treatment plants, and also worked in the IT sector in knowledge management. So I have a deep respect and appreciation of the work you are doing, of documenting everything. And so I thought, it is a good way of me chipping in for this lecture. And let me tell you, Masala Trail actually started off as my own study of masalas because I was working in that field. So after quitting all my past my past profession, I got into food and making masalas. So there was a single request from a friend saying that she wanted my Kori masala because I'm a Kori. And when I talked to my aunt about
Anjali, your video is frozen. Yeah, now it's moving. Yeah. Thank you.
My connectivity is okay. So since we are on the internet, this could be a little bit of a problem. But if we have a major this, then I'll switch to my phone. But right now, I'm using the desktop for convenience. So yeah, to continue with our discussion on masalas. So, when someone requested that I should share the Kori masala with them, it began as, a proliferating request. And I started making masalas. And, I started going around Mumbai and its masala gullies. So we all know that Masjid Bandar, is so famous for its masala gali. And so I went exploring over there and was, talking to the vendors, and I discovered that, for all the spice that we are famous for and all the great love of spices that we have, Mumbai's flavors are actually brought out in the food only by a few local spices, whereas most of the spices came from foreign countries. And that got me interested. And it was around 2003 that I took a trip to Kerala and started visiting spice gardens over there and trying to actually see how spices are grown. Before that, as a Mumbaikar, I except haldi or maybe tirpar, which are local spices. I did not even know what the spices looked like on their original plants. So that was the beginning of my interest growing into the spice world. And I would like to take you along with me. And so to begin with, how are masalas made? Masala making, I shall share my screen now where you will see the documentation of all these masalas on my blog. So we will go through it together. I hope the screen is visible now.
It's not yet visible. It will take some time, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why is it coming up? Yeah. So
now it's visible.
You see the plate, yeah. So you see the plate of masalas over there. So this was my, obviously my first photography of masalas, and I put it in a plate and placed it nicely because this was going to be the beginning of my documenting all the masalas. So pay attention to this plate because this whole talk today is we are starting with this plate, and it's like a puzzle. At the end of it, you will be quite surprised as to what it holds. So
Shahnaz, are you able to see the screen or hear anything?
No, I'm not able to either see nor hear.
That's the problem. I think I'll text her that
Yeah.
probably she's logged out.
It's showing that she's here.
Anjali, we can see the picture on the screen, but we are not able to hear you.
how can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but the voice is not that clear. Sound is not clear. Hello?
Don't know why.
It's okay now. It's okay.
Yeah, all right. So this is thing we have to live with on internet. Yeah. So what is masala making? Consists of masala making depends. The quality of the masala depends on the quality of the spices which are part of your masala. The cleaning, obviously, because most of these spices, are go through a drying process, and the drying place decides whether it has any stones or weeds or whatever that needs cleaning. There is treatment. When I say treatment, it is even if it is dried, there is either toasting or mostly for the masalas it is toasting. Also sometimes maybe usage of a little bit of oil where needed in certain cases. Let's say it is masala, then most of the ingredients are fat. So sorry. Is someone asking a question?
No, the question answers would be taken at the end of the session. I think someone has unmuted the mic.
Yeah. Okay. So ignoring that, and besides treatment, we have to decide the proportions, because if you see this thali, These are ingredients which every community would be familiar with, but their usage in their masala, the community specific masala, we will touch back on community specificity. This community specific masala, the proportions are decided by their the spice and also the level of each spice required in the masala. Then there are the methods of grinding, whether it is stone ground or whether it is pounded. All that decides the quality of the masala. Also the sieving, because most of these are plant-based spices. Removing the larger pieces because some of them are very strongly strong tasting, so you have to remove that, or say like chilies, the dentals or the stems have to be removed. So sieving is also very important, and above all the preparation. So what we've seen is recipes of masalas vary according to the community, because the Brahminical community would have sattvic, what they understand as sattvic masalas or spices, whereas say the Kori community would like it, to have a stronger tasting spice in their masala blend, because we would like to mask the smell of fish, or maybe the Muslim community would like more aromatics because they want the mutton or chicken that they used to be subdued. So that is how the masala usage and spice usage and proportions are decided. Now, this is the joke that we have among the Koris, that even in Kori families, from family to family, the proportion of aromatics and chilies varies, because some would like it to have more heat, whereas the Nakwa, who is obviously in the higher scale of higher status, would like it more aromatic. So they say that Nakwa, so which means that Nakwa's food is more aromatic, whereas the Kedra's food is more spicy. This also indicates the status, the financial status of a particular family. So why we say that, we will come to know as we go along this trail. So let's start with our first spice. This is what you see, tirfar. So tirfar is basically a berry, and what we use is the pericarp, or the outer part of the berry, and it has 3 lobes, and that's why it gets its name tirfar. Now this tirfar is not to be confused with tirfara. Tirfar is a spice, whereas tripara is a laxative which is used in Ayurveda. And these are 2 different things with different applications. Now, tirfar is also called as tilpra or kamtekai, dominikai, pepper, and this is very commonly used in the coastal region. The Koris use tirfar in ground form, whereas you will see it used whole in Bangalore, Goa, where certain curries are unthinkable without tirfar. And this is a very native spice. So, though there are other people who will claim it to be their spice, but they are not the same. Most people, when I shared this picture at first, said that it looks like Szechuan pepper. So this is the sad thing, that people are able to identify Szechuan pepper, which is Chinese, and are not able to identify it as tirfar, because rarely you will see tirfar being used anywhere other than the west coast of India. But yes, what is the difference of between tirfar and Szechuan spice? So if you're saying that this is Szechuan pepper, then the Japanese will say it is Japanese pepper or Korean pepper. So they do appear to be similar, but they are not the same. though they belong to the same genus, Xanthoxylum. They are the Szechuan pepper is smaller and it is reddish. In the green form, it is early, then it is also found in green shade. But the pepper is always, blackish or brownish in color. And that is how you identify it. And as far as the sharpness is concerned, the Szechuan pepper is more sharper in taste, and this it is also called chirfal in Marathi, and this spice, it has a tingling taste. So the pleasure of having this spice in the curry is that it gives a tingling taste to the tongue, and that is the basically the spice which helps digest the fish meat and the fish fat easily. So that is about tirfad. Then we'll move on to another local spice or native spice, where today Mumbai cannot imagine as a city where you have bungalows and what we call Magsadar or the kitchen garden. But turmeric was once upon a time grown in your backyard. So it was used very easily in curries, and even the oldest curry, which archaeologically has established that turmeric was used in that curry. So this is the turmeric it's a rhizome, and this is the dried form that you're seeing here. So we call that harad, haldi, or in Gujarati haldar. Then in the South Indian languages, manjar or haridra. Haridra is the Sanskrit word for it. And surprisingly, haridra kumkumam, which gets a mention in ritualistic and religious Hindu texts, both are the same thing actually. So haridra is turmeric, and kumkumam, which is derived from turmeric by using lime on it, it becomes red colored, and so both are extremely important in our religious and ritualistic practices. So sorry. So today I would like to mention that turmeric, besides its use in the culinary practices in India, it is also important in other ritualistic applications. Like say for when you get married, you're pampered with turmeric lepan or turmeric pack just before marriage. So since it lightens the skin a little bit and also heals any cuts and wounds. So that is the biggest medical application of turmeric. And turmeric is applied in Hindu religion twice actually. We know Is everyone able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes, you are audible, Anjali.
Okay, I have connection, so I have to connect again. Yeah, so there are yeah, so there are two times when turmeric is applied. One is before the wedding, and one after that. Before the final rituals are given to the dead body. So, and today, especially, I would like to mention is Champa Shashti, which is a very important festival for the Koris. It is the day when our god, our Khandoba, or as he is known more popularly, Martand. He gets married to his spouse, and so today is celebrated as Champa Shashti, and turmeric is thrown up in the air, just like it is done as we do for Holi, and that is one application of turmeric. The reason that turmeric is thrown up in the air is because it gives the appearance of gold. It is compared to gold, and therefore we shower our wishes for prosperity on Khandoba and his wife Malsa. So that is a picture that you see from Khandoba Palki on the screen. Also, turmeric has become now very famous across the world. Suddenly, everyone has discovered that it is a superfood, and the US Patent Office had granted the patent to two people, but CSIR fought for it and won the legal battle and revoked that patent because since ancient times we Hello. Sorry about the still. So I had lost you, but I'm back again. So that's
yes, please continue.
Yeah, so that's about turmeric. And then let us move on to spice number 3, which is jeera. Again, jeera, this is really funny. When I started reading about jeera, I was under the impression that, jeera is one of the sattvic spices and it's recommended for fasting foods. And then on reading, I discovered that why is it considered a sattvic spice, and how we started using it in spicing our fasting foods. And also, the most surprising part is that it is not even Indian. So how did it come to be recognized as sattvic? So the story goes like this: that jeera was grown majorly in Middle Eastern region and also in the southern part of Europe, and
Anjali, you are again not audible.
Yeah, I had lost connection, so I had to connect again. This connection is
Ayurvedic Ayurvedic application started being used for non-veg curries mainly. It helps in controlling vomiting, fever, and migraines, and really surprising to find its presence as a spice. Then we come to Badiyan or Chakraful or what we call star anise. This is among the prettiest of spices, and it is 5 to 7 lobed spice. Which looks very pretty and a favorite with the food stylists. This again is used due to its tenderizing meat for meat dishes. And this is similar to fennel. So in commercial use, you will find fennel is substituted with star anise most of the time. Then again, we have this tamal patra or tej patta. Tej patta, as we know, is called Indian bay leaf. But again, it is always, the names have been given based on what people have known. So since the Europeans knew their bay leaf, they called this as Indian bay leaf. But these are two different species altogether. Tamalpatra, as we know, is fragrant and used in biryanis and garam masala. Again, most of these fragrant and garam spices are used as tenderizers and aromatics in meat dishes. And this spice gets mostly used in the northeastern and northern region, whereas in the Kori masala, it is ground into the blend. Then we have the cloves. So cloves, everyone knows that they are singularly famous for their application in toothache. And this again is a very pretty flower bud, which is the crucial part of plucking these buds is when they are reddish in color on the plant. And though they grow alternatively on the plant, they only the red ones are plucked. So plucking lavang is a very crucial factor in harvesting it. And then it is boiled and dried, and plump brownish black color of the lavang indicates that it is of best quality. Again, this is a spice which is used in garam masala, but I've seen its usage in South India in Then we go on to Shahjeera. Shahjeera again, this is though it's called Shahjeera, like I mentioned, we identify it as cumin because it looks like that, but this is a different spice altogether. And this is milder in taste, and it is of Persian origin mainly. So that's the reason why we call it Shahjeera, because it gets used often in the Mughlai preparations and Persian preparations. And in English, it's called caraway seeds. In the European region, we find that Shahjeera is used in baking and in soups and as a preservative. Then so the last, I think I've rushed through and finally reached the end. So we come to hing. Hing, surprisingly, is comes from Iran and Afghanistan, and this is a much loved spice in India. We cannot do without hing in our tadkas, and also we cannot do without it in our masala blends. Now, this is the secret, and this is the last spice of our trail, and you will know why we are talking about it at the end. Because while we will use it as a powder as part of the masala blends, it is important to have this little lump of hing sitting on top of your jar of masalas because of its preservative properties. It is a very sulfurous smelling spice, but that is what makes it acceptable to all the vegetarians. They love it because they fool themselves saying that they are not eating garlic and onions, but they will love this very fetid smelling spice. And so with that, we conclude our trail. And let me now tell you that the plate that you saw with all the spices in the beginning itself, that is the plate of Kori masala. So you have seen, we have gone through all the ingredients that are part of Kori masala, which is the flavor of Mumbai as a native community. And the Kori masala is very similar to the other native communities of Mumbai, the East Indian community, and also the Bohras. You know, all those who make bottle masala have a similar kind of composition. And after we bottle our masala, we put a tiny cube of hing on top, so that the masala stays good all through the year, and you know, makes our curries spicy and tasty. So with that, I end my masala trail. I'm really sorry about the internet connection being bad, but I have tried to complete this trail in this particular session. Thank you, Jashan organizers, for giving me this opportunity to talk about my community's masala, and for you know, giving me this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anjali. Thank you for
Anjali.
accepting our invitation and for talking to us this beautiful ethnographic presentation, a glimpse into masalas. I don't think we probably barely know about 10 or 12 masalas in daily life. So there's a lot more to be explored. We will take all the questions and we will pass them on to you, because our next speaker is now waiting. So a warm welcome to Ranjit Hoskote. But thank you so much, Anjali, that you accepted my invitation.
Thank you.
Little technical glitches happen all the time. There is no need for you to feel sorry about this. But I think we will look forward to you in future festivals and also in the Darbar Hall.
Sure, my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Anjali.